All right, James, you got us this time, damn it. But not next time. Next time we are coming prompt at 5 o'clock, and I will not dilly-dally back here. I will be expeditious with my time. But that's going to have to be for next time. Today, I'm joined, as always, PG Jance, and we got a lot to talk about. It's one of those weird shows where we're kind of in the middle of no man's land with nothing but ammunition around us, ready for us to have just a great time. So I'm very excited, but as always, y'all know the drill. Before we get hopped into all this, you got to let the people know who you are, where they can find all your great content, and what you have coming up. PG, I'll start with you just because you're sitting up top.
Yeah, you would make me tell me what I got coming up. Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube or all the major podcast platforms. The PG Show, all one word. We just launched another player interview today with four-star running back 2025, Caden Knighton, which you guys should be paying attention to his Twitter. He might be dropping a commitment here pretty soon. But we also got other player interviews coming up currently with the new offensive lineman for Colorado. I'm totally blanking on his name at the moment. And then we also have Bennett Warren as well coming on. So that one's been one that's been in the works. But I'd love to have you guys pull up and check them out and let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, man, always a good time. Those interviews are always fantastic. If y'all don't watch those, that's why I have you say that every single time. They need to be aware of what's on what's on the menu over at your channel, man. It's a lot of good stuff cooking up over there. Jance, my man, good to have you. Second show in a row. Everything feels right
I
in the
know,
world.
I know we're being consistent, man. But I'm sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather. But no, you guys, if you guys want to find me on Twitter, Gents716. Especially if you want to try to get in contact with me, talking about the latest about football, just in sports in general, or just whatever you want to talk about. You guys can hit me up there. And then, of course, if you want to see some of my content, Gents Sports. Of course, we got a lot of things under the works. A lot of spring ball. Of course, we got draft season coming up, almost complete with my first mock draft, which I'm a little nervous for, but we're just gonna release it and just see how it does. But yeah, if you guys want to catch my content over there, you guys can find me there.
Yeah, man, always good stuff. And we've got a friend of the show in the house, two friends of the show in the house. We have RJ Moore Malone, has guested on the show before. RJ, I was actually wanting to hit you up after this. I didn't know what you had going on next week, but if Monday or Friday next week you're available, would love to have you come on here, talk some ball. And Jay with Unfair Sports, he says, hold it down for me, fellas. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe while you're here. He might be hopping on tonight. It might not. No promises, but I just floated out here. Remember, guys, we can bully people into coming onto streams, and that's the only issuances of bullying that's allowed around these parts. But speaking of bullying, guys, I don't know about both of y'all. I had today kind of all charted out, right, ready to go, and I was excited for the weekend of recruiting we're getting. We're getting big time commitments today. We're getting big time commitments tomorrow, and we're getting big time commitments, I think, through Sunday. I mean, it's going to be 3 days of straight action. And today's looked like it had a nice bow put around it this morning. Aaron Flowers, 4-star safety out the state of Texas, number 133 in the nation, number 10 safety in the nation, number 24 in Texas per 24/7 Sports Composite. This looked like a two-team race between Oklahoma and USC. And in fact, for all of you in the comments who watched the video I put out earlier in the week, we talked about even Alabama being a team that he spoke really highly of. Now, at the time, I floated the idea, could Alabama get back into this? And then answered my own question, saying, I think it's very unlikely, just given the time frame. He has great relationships with these two institutions. It would be a lot for Bama to make up, but never say never in recruiting. And boy, one of the reasons we never say never is because right when it looks like everything is sewed up for him to go to USC, here comes the edit. And now Aaron Flowers is an Oregon Duck. And guys, I couldn't help but just kind of laugh for no purpose other than like, well, there goes that video I had already had made. PG, what were you thinking, man?
Just Oregon fans are potentially having flashbacks to signing day because now they have
no.
Oh
no.
Safety that Oklahoma really, really, really wants.
Don't do this to Oregon fans. That's foul. That's
But no, I mean, it completely shocked me. In an interview he did with the Rivals, Nick Harris, he talked about how he really didn't make this decision until Thursday morning when he decided that Oregon would be the best place for him. So I think this really came down last minute, which, I mean, you kind of saw with Steve Wiltfong and Parker Thune and Brandon Drum and those guys submitting those crystal balls. But Aaron Flowers, he's a guy that definitely has NFL upside. He has the athleticism to go up there and hang with the best of them. I think in 2 years as a starter had 18 pass breakups. So right there tells you he's not afraid to get up there with the best of them and try to hang, right? Try to go bat that ball out of the air, 4 interceptions. So he can get up there and catch it as well. I think he had like 118 or 116 tackles. So a lot of this is fresh in my mind because I just made a video on it.
Yeah, for sure. Same, right? I knew his ranking and everything because I had just made the video on it. And here we go.
Yeah.
Boom, right?
But huge need for the Oregon Ducks because, like I said, they lost Peyton Bowen last off cycle to Oklahoma in a battle where you really can't blame their coaches because they thought they had won it. They probably should have gotten Peyton Bowen in reality. So I think landing a guy like Aaron Flowers is big for them. We're just going to have to see if they're able to keep him because I know that Jay Valai, Brandon Hall, they really want this kid. And if they really want him and they continue to push and they continue to leverage that relationship, Oregon Duck fans better be shaking in fear.
Yeah. Well, I bet you one thing. I bet they don't stop recruiting Aaron Flowers until Penn pushes paper. I guarantee you that. And furthermore, when we look at Oklahoma specifically, we got to give a little caveat real quick, and then I'm going to throw it to Jance and inevitably Chris. Hats off to Brandon Hall and Valai. The way they closed out that last class, well, I guess I'll be throwing it to Chris, but the way they closed out that last class was super impressive. And I'm really interested to see what they do at the safety position. But one of the points I was going to make in today's video was that it wasn't super necessary for Oklahoma to get that win for Aaron Flowers. It would have been nice for them to get the Aaron Flowers win. But considering y'all are coming off of a class with Vickers, with Bowen, right? You feel very good about your future at safety. Chris, go ahead, PG. Go ahead.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, because I've actually looked into this safety thing because I'm trying to figure out who could the Oklahoma Sooners, like, who are they potentially really looking at? And you've got Jaden Hardy, who I think is going to end up here at this point. You've seen those crystal balls start flowing in for him. But there's a 5-star safety in KJ Bolden who has actually talked very highly of Oklahoma, even pushed Edric Houston to come to Oklahoma. So that tells me if he even pushed his teammate to come out here and check Oklahoma out, yeah, I'm not counting Oklahoma to win this, but Oklahoma's obviously there in that race for a guy in KJ Bolden who's just absolutely phenomenal, top 5 player in the country. So I look at it and go, there are other options. And if the staff really want to go all in on a guy like KJ Bolden, I mean, yeah, if you miss, well, you've got all of last class. So if you only get to take one really good guy in this class, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah, especially with the way y'all have worked the transfer portal as well. I think you're good there. Chris, I mean, I've sent about 3 GIFs and memes in our little group chat about this ever since Aaron Flowers announced to Oregon, but mainly because I was fooled as well, right? Like, I had the video ready to go. I was like, this is a great win for Grinch and USC. Kid is good. And then here comes Oregon. So is this more bad USC or good Oregon?
I would say, I mean, obviously I want to say bad USC, but
I know the OU fan in you wants to say
that. But I think I'm going to lean more towards good Oregon simply because I think Lanning is trying to build something there, obviously, and I think he's trying to get that pedigree going. And I think one of the easier things for him is that, look, okay, obviously I know OU like this kid an awful lot, but I think he's telling them against, hey, look, these other schools are looking at you. You got to get in, fit in, and try to figure it out, and that's great, and that's the route you need to go. You're gonna have to come here and compete as well, but there's spots open to immediately play. And I think that, you look at a place like USC and you say, yeah, you can go there, but, are you really going to play? This is what they do. And I think, gosh, what was that kid? What was his name? Dominique
Jackson.
Yeah.
5-star cornerback.
Yeah. And I mean, Ty, please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember really hearing his name all that much last year.
I think he
was
had an
looking to hit the
injury.
portal.
Yeah.
He was
He torn his ACL.
Yeah, he in fairness, look, that wasn't that unfortunately wasn't on Grinch.
Yeah,
or
and
that was
the whole thing. It's just
unfortunate.
that okay, well, I'll jump off that boat, but I know for sure I was about to say it seemed to me it was just kind of like
fair
another
question.
Grinch thing. Yeah,
Fair
because
question.
you know, kind of with Grinch, you know how Grinch is with freshmen or kids that just really don't. I don't know. It's different for Grinch. You got to practice perfect. Got to do a lot of different things out there. But I just think that this was a big win for Oregon. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, look, and this for everybody in the comments is what you call trying to give Chris a softball for content. I know he's a big OU fan, and so I thought I could load that question and have him be like, "Bad USC," and next thing you know, we're clipping this and we're gonna get some content out of this. But I completely agree with you, man. Look, USC's recruiting really well coming off of the class of 2023. Oklahoma's recruiting really well, and Oregon is recruiting really well. So I can't say any of these institutions are in a bad way recruiting. I think you're a fan of any of the three. You feel great. Jance, talk to me, man. How surprised were you at this win right here?
Yeah, I thought I thought he was going to go to a UFC. Me personally, thought he was hot on that trail. I don't think really a lot of people expected him to go to Oregon. I thought Bama could have a little bit of a shot only because I believe he took that unofficial visit on March 24th to us.
Yeah.
So I thought that maybe we're just in the mix, but you know how it is. You know how kids can be sometimes. Do I think that this race is completely over? I don't think so. Until a kid signs pen to paper. For the most part, I still think that a lot of teams have a chance. I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma still continues to at least be in the conversation as far as potentially trying to go after him. Same thing with USC. But do I think is it the end of the world that they miss out on a kid like this? Probably not. I mean, you know how Alabama is, at least for our, how Alabama is. We're going to be up there. We're going to be top 5, top 3, no questions about it. Oklahoma's going to be. I mean, Oklahoma won 6 and what? I believe they went 6
and 7 and recruited with their hair on fire.
Finished 4th in recruiting, so they're going to get kids that they want to try
Unbelievable.
to get. Same thing with USC. Of course, they're getting a lot of interest from that southern LA district, right? The Mater Days, the Trinity League, the J. Sarah Catholics, the Mater Days, the Boscos, all those schools over there. So they're going to get the kids that they want to try to get over there as well. It's just, again, would you like to have them? Would any kid would any school like to have them? Of course, but not the end of the world at the end of the day. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these teams that I just mentioned are still in the conversation for them.
Yeah, look, there are certain prospects you keep pushing on. You keep pushing because maybe you can get them to move the needle.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Flowers will, but I think that Oklahoma, and I have no doubt Oklahoma will keep pushing, just knowing that the level of recruiter that is on that coaching staff, they're going to push. And I have every reason to believe that USC will keep pushing as well. Why wouldn't you? Look, at the end of the day, the class of 2024 is going to give us so much in terms of fireworks. I talked about this in the video that didn't end up coming out. And one of the things I said is, look, if you're asking questions about USC's offense, you're asking the wrong questions. That's not a question, right? We know what's going to happen over there. The question is, and especially with the move on the horizon, what's the defense going to look like? Now, I think we all need to acknowledge, I've talked about this with Florida. I've talked about this even with Oklahoma and as well with USC. Lincoln Riley got to LA, looked out in the parking lot and saw his program was a Lamborghini. But when he walked up to it, the Lamborghini was on cinder blocks and it didn't have an engine in it, right? The shell is there. You have something you can build something beautiful into. It requires a lot of work, right? Florida is the same way. It was a Ferrari on cinder blocks and no engine.
Ty, can I just I just got a comment. I don't think you could call USC a Lamborghini when he walked in there because Caleb wasn't there yet. Unless we're just assuming that the conversation that they had
caliber of program.
Well, I'm just saying that unless we assume that the conversation that they had outside of Gallagher, not Gallagher, but basically Boone Pickens Stadium was about him coming to UFC with him. I'm just saying.
Well, no. Fair. What I mean is like the program in and of itself is a Lamborghini, but it's been a Lamborghini that's been parked out in the rain for quite some time.
Yeah.
I mean, it don't get me wrong, Chris. In your defense, this Lamborghini, it needs work. But the shell is there. And that's why ultimately I think I and so many others around college football have such, I don't want to say vested interest, but for lack of a better term, a vested interest in USC. I really want to know how that defense is going to go. But some comments I want to get to, and then we're going to talk about the spring game comments from Hugh Freeze. Primetime Vari asked the question, do you think OU safety room played a role in Flowers' decision? I'm going to say I'm going to disagree, PG, only because of this. Yes and no. Let me explain. I think he certainly understands that with what y'all have done in the transfer portal, with what you did last class, that's a good room. But he is also a dude. Right? Like this is a certifiable dude we're talking about. These type of guys, they feel like they can walk into any room and compete. And he certainly has that level of tenacity to him. So yes and no. I think you certainly acknowledge how well Oklahoma has recruited that position, transfer portal, traditional recruiting means. But at the same time, I don't think that's not the reason he went there, just because he's a straight dog, man. Like he's down with the competing. He is not a dude who's going to shy away from that. I just think that the Oregon staff is really good at recruiting. We saw that last year. They were in a really good position and then had some decommitments. I mean, you think where this Oregon class would be if they don't lose Dante Moore and if they don't lose Peyton Bowen?
Yeah.
Oh, it's top 5 class.
There, you know what I mean? So it's super interesting, but I think, Vari, it played a part, but I won't say it's the whole part because I just don't look at Flowers and say that's a guy who's going to shy away from competition. What are you thinking, PG?
I'm liking all these comments in here about how it's the Nike money. Guys, the NIL is not as big of a factor as you think it is, guys. You really got to get off that train. Oregon's not throwing around tens of millions of dollars in Nike money every recruiting cycle to land the 135th ranked player in the country. You know, they might do that for the number 3 overall player in the country. That's a safety, but they ain't doing that for the number 133 guy. It's just not happening.
Yeah. And even then, I don't think Oregon was on the top 10 list of NIL spenders, were they, Chris? No, I don't believe they were, which was surprising.
Well, and something people need to understand is every school is vying for the players at some level for NIL because they all have some NIL program that's generally paying their players just to be on campus. Now, some schools have different regulations. Oklahoma's, you got to do some community service stuff, and you got to be leading specific events in order to make that kind of money. Some schools are just straight up giving players $50,000. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you think about all the PWOs and walk-ons that are going to benefit from that. But I don't really think NIL is as big a factor as people think. I think people want to believe it's more of a problem than it really is. You see maybe 1 or 2 schools, maybe even 3, where, you've heard of big bags being thrown around from the players, but I don't think that NIL is actually a problem when it comes to the recruiting these guys.
Let me correct myself. No, they were in the top 10, but they were number 9, 1.8 million on the recruiting trail. As far as
and once again, that's not NIL. That's just
yeah. But
they put forward.
Yeah, but that's still something.
Yeah, and when it comes to the big recruits, like I'm going to use David Stone for an example because I know you have a lot of OU fans that watch, and that's probably one of the more high-profile recruits in this class. They know how to build the brand, and a guy like David Stone, wherever he goes, he's going to get a big bag because there's going to be people waiting to give that guy money at that school. So
here's my question, and this is for you, LeVar. Who's not? What school is not handing out a bag right now? And when we get to that, then we can have a conversation. I don't disagree with your premise, LeVar, that Nike is using their leverage to be able to make Oregon a more desirable destination. But that's the age of NIL. If you can give me a school not using NIL, USC's using NIL.
And I would argue this. I think personally, it's counterproductive for Phil Knight to use his money and pour it into the football program than it is for him to pour it into their basketball program, where Nike makes basketball shoes and they own that market. Wouldn't it make more sense for Phil Knight to pour that money in and millions into high talented basketball recruits like Bronny James to get them so that he can get them on the Nike shoe line?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, hell, Nike is NFL. They have the NFL now, so I mean, it's
yeah, but you don't see NFL players with signature Nike cleats. I mean, you
see them with custom J's and all types of stuff. You see them with all types of Nike gear, man. There's a lot of those athletes are signed with Nikes. Nike and Adidas are really the big brands, unless you have some people who are like New Balance or Reebok, different things like that, who are just being different. But I mean, Nike is all over the place. It's
also, I do want to hit this one comment real fast, Mark. Look, while the answer to that is yes, the problem then comes with, are we then going to look at the morality of how all of these institutions are coming into their money, and the people who have that money, are we then going to question the morality of how they acquired that money? At what point we're creating a slippery slope, right? Well, like that's you're not wrong, but like we're creating a slippery slope of like where people are getting what and the morality of it, and that's not really a conversation for a college football channel. I mean, that's an interesting conversation to have. One we could absolutely have at a later date, Mark, and I'd really be interested in having it with you. But yeah, that's just
to be honest, I mean, not every school is going to have the funding for NIL. It's not there from the fan base for every single school. I mean, look at a school like Vanderbilt. I'm sure they do not have people lining up to be a donor for an NIL program there right now. As their program gets better, maybe that NIL program there starts to build a little bit more. But I mean, not every school is going to have the funding of an Oklahoma or an Oregon or Texas or an Alabama or Georgia. It's just not there unless your fan base really cares about football.
Well, and here's one thing I will say, Mark. If you're being consistent and saying create the slippery slope, then I'm down with it. Then we're on the same page. That's all well and good. But guys, we could talk about this forever. I do want to look at something because I'm not going to say for sure, but USC, don't they have like an NIL group?
I think they have a whole collective.
Yeah, they're definitely using NIL, Crawford. There's no question about it. I'll put it like this. If your head coach in 2023 is saying we're not going to use NIL, that's not a good thing, because there are other teams that are going to be developing at the same clip as you, if not better, that are using NIL. I think USC would probably have
I think they should have one of the biggest NIL programs. I mean, look at Caleb Williams. He's been there.
I guarantee they have a great one. Yeah, I guarantee they have a great collective. I would be shocked if they didn't.
Beats is one of them because Beats has given so many headphones out to all of like women's basketball team, men's basketball team, the football team. I mean, like, yeah, the USC is just fine when it comes to the NIL side of the game.
Where do I get a Beats deal at? I think I'd have to have talent for that first, and that's something I just don't have.
Call up Dr. Dre.
He wouldn't answer. He'd hit me with the FU button so quick. Click. Yeah, that'd be the end of that conversation. But, guys, something I did want to talk about, something, Chris, you and I talked about the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting theory was floated by none other than Hugh Freeze. Now, y'all have probably seen this. Y'all have probably talked about this, but we wanted to talk about it here this evening because I won't say proposed. I think proposed is too strong of a word because I think proposed kind of implies some formality, right? But it's been floated by Hugh Freeze. Why not allow an Auburn to play like a Troy or a UAB for the spring game? And same for Alabama. Now, we talked about this on SEC Connect, coming to you live every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Would love to see you over there, but I don't have a problem with this in the least. I've tried to think of negatives to this, right? And I've arrived at 2. And both of those negatives I've arrived at, I can talk myself out of very easily. Meaning, like, if I was on the other side of the aisle, I could debate out of those negatives very, very easily. I'll give you my 2 negatives, and then I'll give you the out to those 2 negatives. Number 1, increased risk of injury. Number 2, are you getting the same amount of development? When you have your spring game, you're playing, 1 through 4. Here's how you get around point number 1. Are you any more likely to get injured playing against Troy as you would be playing against Alabama? Right? If you're Alabama, are you any more likely to get injured playing against Troy than the 5 stars on the other side of the field playing yourself? Right? I don't know the rates there. I'm not going to pretend that it would be more. I'm not going to pretend that it would be less. The second point, the reason you can get around this, if you're not developing the guys before you get to the spring game, you've probably approached spring all wrong, right? Like this is one, what's the word I'm looking for, Chris? Whenever you, God bless America. Like it's an expedition. Thank you. Like it's basically an expedition game. If you haven't developed your third and fourth guys by that point, and you're waiting on that one game just to showcase to your fans, you've probably approached spring wrong. So at the end, I just don't see too many negatives to this, and maybe I'm missing something. But guys, that's where all of you come in. What am I missing here? What are your thoughts on this, PG? Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm laughing at one of the comments about Caleb Williams switches beats every time they go dead, because it's probably true. You can have
That's funny.
But no, I'm actually a huge advocator for this, because I mean, think about the revenue that a smaller school like Troy or UAB can get from traveling to a Norman or a Tuscaloosa to play those teams. And in reality, like, let's say their quarterback gets hurt, it's not like those teams were going to the playoffs anyways. So it's like, I understand we don't want guys to get hurt, but like for those schools, I think they're going to be looking at it more on the financial side more than, hey, we just lost our starting quarterback for the whole year, because they probably weren't getting to that high level anyways. But I think like, for an Alabama or an OU, I think it's great because, that team's still going to want to come out and beat you. So you're going to get a good look of your players and what kind of talent you have and who I think is, actually ready to play, especially with some of these freshmen coming in, because some of these freshmen or PWOs, this might be an opportunity for you to put them out there and see what they're really made of, and maybe leave some of your guys that are a little bit more proven on the bench. So I like the idea, honestly. Even if Oklahoma played UCO in an exhibition match, I'd pay to go to that. I'd pay $10-15 to go to that game, just because it's football and it's, meaningful football. It's not just a scrimmage. That's just my thoughts. Yeah. They don't even have to play a Division I football team. If they just played a Division II football team, I'd show up for that.
Somehow UNT still will find a way to mess it up. Jance, what are you thinking?
No, for the most part, like I'm always down with the plan. Like I've always wanted to see what would it be like if Alabama played against North Dakota State? That would have been, that for an exhibition, that would have been an absolute fun matchup and a great test to see, if a lot of the guys that are third string guys, fourth string guys, and even the early enrollees could look like against a powerhouse, another powerhouse football team without really waiting until the fall. One of the biggest issues is the fact that it seems like you're playing an exhibition game in the fall, around that time. Now, I guess if you can take a look at some of those downsides, because a lot of the theory kind of goes into the fact that first game, they want that conference play, or they want those cross matchups between two non-conference opponents, and you wouldn't get to see really the Appalachian, the Marshalls, of the world kind of getting their upset wins against the Notre Dames and the Appalachian State over Michigan back in 2007. You wouldn't be able to get to see those potentially, because when they do happen, I mean, they're making the news all week long. But again, it's rare. It is a rarity. It is something that doesn't really happen as frequently as possible. So in my opinion, I would definitely love to see something in the spring. Now, again, maybe another downside is that a lot of the summer enrollees, including guys that are transferring a little bit late, would not get the opportunity to play in that exhibition game. Instead, they would just have to take the traditional role of going through fall camp. So, that's probably kind of a little bit of another downside, is that maybe their development, well, I won't even really get to say their development is delayed, because, how many kids have we seen coming through the fall and they've started,
and they wouldn't be there anyways, so they wouldn't be missing anything.
Yeah, they wouldn't miss anything. But I guess, again, maybe you could potentially make an argument that maybe, guys like that, maybe, because it is film, like that technically is a film against another opponent. And maybe coaches can take a look at that instead of just, the typical scrimmages or typical practices that they normally see. Maybe this game has a little bit more of a higher stakes compared to your average scrimmage. So maybe that could be a little bit of a downside. But no, besides that, though, I love this idea. I do think, for the most part, the first couple of weeks of college football, it could be a little bit boring or a little bit bland, only because, again, the matchups are just not. I mean, the matchups are just extremely predictable 95% of the time. But I'm definitely imposed for this.
Yeah.
Well, and see, they could easily take out that FCS opponent that teams play in the regular season and move it to the spring. But like I said,
interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, like I said, why don't you just give that as
Absolutely.
an opportunity to start more of your PWOs and your walk-ons to see what you have during the spring? I think that would just be a little more interesting.
They're not showing anything anyway, right? I mean, how much are you showing as far as that in the spring game anyway? It's going to be televised.
You're not going to go deep.
You're not showing nothing. It's going to be real vanilla. You're just trying to get a lot of guys, a lot of action, and maybe it'd be good to not be hitting your own guys. I mean, to me, I think the injury side of it, you're probably more likely to get injuries going against better players on your own squad.
Yeah, injuries already happen anyway.
Ones against ones are going to freaking get you more injuries than what, you going up against a North Dakota State or in this case, this game against like Arkansas State or whatever. Obviously it was a filling game for Oklahoma, but I mean, I'd rather see that be in like a, spring game situation, whatever. I don't really see a downside to it. I really don't. And I think that, they're not going to show anything away to anybody you're still months away from the season anyway, but you get a chance to look at some younger guys. Like what PG said, I mean, why not try out you've got PWOs, you got a lot of guys that, maybe they will get a chance, maybe they won't, it gives you an opportunity to get a good look at some of the younger guys, I think, and against somebody other than your 4 and 5-star guys that are already there.
Great points. Chris, I know we already talked about this, but we just got a lot of new perspectives on this. What are you thinking on it?
I mean, I think everybody had, those are good perspectives or whatnot. But like I told you, Ty, I mean, I think that you could turn this into really a controlled scrimmage setting, similar to what they do in the NFL for like a week long or whatnot. That's a great idea with switching the FCS game and all the rest of that stuff. But it's the problem with that is that, a lot of people would like to see that one-off game or whatnot, but it's kind of just, to me, I think it messes with the heart of the season. You don't want to take that many games away from there, especially in this climate now. But my whole thing is, like I said, I think you can make a controlled scrimmage. I think that you could do that as far as just bringing those teams in or whatnot and kind of opening up some of those practices or whatnot. I don't necessarily think it has to be like a full-fledged game for me to actually want to watch or participate or whatnot, but you can bring those teams in there, and then also, as much as I want to see the PWOs and guys like that get a shot or whatnot, look, it's college sports. That's the heart of it, it's competition. Fair enough. You're going to be on the field, you got to go earn a spot. We can't just, make games for everybody. You gotta go earn that right to be out there on that field, to be able to play. So my whole thing would be, you want to get those younger guys looks, but you also want to, iron sharpens iron. You want your ones out there. You want guys out there progressing or whatnot. But like I said, I think I'm not really worried about the injuries or whatnot. I just think that you could have it to where it doesn't matter what team it is, whether it's an FCS team, a division high D2 team, or whatever the case may be coming in. It's just, hey, we got 4 or 5 days to get better. And this is what everything's going to be broken down to or whatnot. And, I think for some of these programs like an Ohio State or a Alabama, even other high level programs that may not have the winning or the tradition like that, it's still great for them to bring some of these smaller schools in there to be able to pitch ideas, exchange, get to see other coaches, get to see other players and everything like that, and get a new look or whatnot. So I'm not opposed to it. I mean, it's not the worst idea on either sides of the conversation I've
certainly heard worse ideas come out of Hugh Freeze's mouth. That's for sure.
Yeah, to play a game or do the scrimmage is bad. And I mean, the thing is that like I said, injuries is pretty much eliminated. Hell, Colin Murray tore his ACL on his own. Nobody touched him. Teddy Bridgewater, we've heard
it happens all the time.
A lot of these non-contact injuries, that's starting to happen an awful lot.
David Beckham was just sitting up his free kick, kind of kicked a little bit under the ball just to create a little divot.
Yeah.
Tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
Doing nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. On a live pitch. Yeah. It was wild. I'll never forget that.
But I'll say this, like, I mean, what if, like, let's just say, so you have Deion Sanders at Colorado. What if they really just wanted to be ballsy and schedule a decent team this year to create a lot of hype and stuff around their program that, not that they already need it, but I mean, what if you had an OU versus Colorado matchup? Like, could you imagine
That'd be fun
for that on a spring game?
So
but
much fun.
two, I mean, you would have people by the drove showing up to watch that game. Like, I just think if you had a spring game that was meaningful outside of just these scrimmages, people want football in April. They want this, and I think it would be really good for it.
It would definitely sell.
Oh yeah,
I think so. I mean, look at what Colorado is doing right now. Yeah. I mean, more people coming to this spring game. I mean, we'd go back
in the last 7 years.
Last 7, yeah,
9 years combined,
and that's only because of the limitations of how much they can hold. Right. I mean, if that stadium was bigger, we could keep adding years and years and years and years onto this. Oklahoma last year, case in point, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken, 70. I was going to say 73,000. I was off by a little bit. Yeah, great point. Now Kim did have a really good point earlier. And while Kim, I think from the business side of this, we're all looking at this from the college football side of this, right? And this is why chat's the best, because they're here to kind of give us a little bit of reality and look at this from the business side of it. Kim asks, if OU sells out a scrimmage, why would they give away money to bring somebody in?
But they're not.
And I think they'd have to.
Some people were talking about
86,000 strong. I mean, that place holds 86,000 people. Just, I mean, on any given Saturday, they can pack almost 90 in there if they want to. I'm not gonna lie. If you had a spring game, I don't think you'd see an empty seat in the stadium. I think.
Well, no, but the point is I think if you could stand to make, for simplicity's sake, we'll call it $500,000 off of this spring game by selling tickets. Doesn't it make more sense for the university to take that $500,000 as opposed to saying, okay, well, now we're going to spend that $500,000 getting Tulsa to come play us, or OBU, or I don't even know if OBU has a team.
They do.
I mean, they're charging. So Oklahoma, they're charging right now $10 a ticket, and let's say they sell, the 75,000 that they did last year, that's only $750,000. I mean, if they bumped it up to $25 a ticket and still sold only 75,000 seats, that's almost $2 million.
But still pay for somebody to come in and make some money.
University could do with a spring game where you're bringing in almost 90,000 people, because it could tell them, okay, we're going to try out selling, like, let's say it's your college's first year selling beer. They could try out selling beer and go, okay, well, for the season, right, we need to do these things differently because it didn't work today. And during the whole season, it's not going to work. Or like if Oklahoma wants to do tailgating on Lindsay Street, okay, how are we going to set that up? Let's try to structure it for the spring game and then figure out what works. So for the season, we can provide a better fan experience, right? I think a lot of colleges would benefit from that. Bringing a ton of people on campus and figuring out how could they make the fan experience better for the regular season.
Hugh Freeze didn't strike me as a charitable man. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he does. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe he's too charitable. Should I not have said that?
No.
No, you should have said it. It's Auburn, dude. You're allowed to talk about that.
If you know, you know. If you know. Oh, well. No, in all fairness, though, I genuinely am. I know this is a while. I am excited for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. I very much well am.
I think they're going to be good.
I hope not.
I hope not. I certainly hope not. But the guy, I mean, look, he was a thorn in the side of Saban when he was at Ole Miss, right? Like, we know what it is. Let's be very real about this. But no, look, I think it's a great idea to bring teams in. I really do. I just don't think you would lose much. I don't see any reason not to. and I really like the idea of dropping the FCS matchup during the season to move it during the spring game. I think that's a cool one.
That game is, I'm like, what's the point? It's like the whole reason why Bedlam's not continuing is because Oklahoma State doesn't want to drop their FCS game to play Oklahoma during,
that's a travesty, by the way.
Yeah, like
they would rather try to get their ass
kicked or Missouri State than play Oklahoma, which would probably bring them in 10 times the revenue.
That's a travesty. You don't want to know what would happen if I was commissioner of college football.
Oh, I promise you, this ain't gonna last long. I guarantee you, Fox Sports is gonna make Oklahoma State play that game again.
I would have something that's like, hey, you got a rival, play them. And look, I understand. I understand rival is a little bit of a loose term here because I understand how skewed the matchup is in Oklahoma's favor against Oklahoma State. I use the term rival whenever there's anything greater than a simple win-loss on the line, right? Because now you're playing for something with stakes.
Well, so this is an interesting question that I've posed a couple times for Oklahoma fans. Would you rather have an out-of-conference matchup with Oklahoma State or Nebraska? And personally, I'd rather have Nebraska than Oklahoma State.
I think
and
so.
I think all of college football would pick Nebraska over Oklahoma State.
I don't. Well,
really?
I don't think so.
Well, no.
I don't know.
There's
more history in that game than Oklahoma State.
Of course, there's more history.
But the recency bias, though, is going to be there. Who's the better team that you've been playing the past?
Yeah, because Nebraska's trash right now, or it has been trash.
Yeah, especially if you're young and if you grow up, there's more history or there's more better matchups between Oklahoma State and Oklahoma compared to Nebraska. You're not going to remember that much about the good old days of when Nebraska was good.
Since Nebraska doesn't have any good old days in a while. It's been a while. I don't know, but I mean, we'll see what happens with Matt Rule, and I think that Matt's a good coach. He's one of those team builder kind of guys. I just don't know how feasible it is. I mean, is this a sleeping giant that can be woken back up? I don't know.
I think so.
Good question.
Let me
if they let Dylan Raiola, it's Nebraska's back real quick.
Let me ask. Well, I don't even know how to phrase this.
Go.
Basically, what happened? I remember I think I was scrolling on Twitter yesterday, just scrolling down, and randomly saw a hype video for the Kansas spring game. And I thought to myself, I said, whoa, hey. What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
Coach Leipold's got him hyped.
Over there, you crazy
Coach
kid.
Leipold's got him hyped.
And they got good quarterback play.
No, I'm excited.
They got fans, you got good quarterback.
Is Daniels coming back? He's back for another year.
Then
they have Bean as the backup.
Bean, they got two solid guys.
Yeah, Bean is super interesting, man.
They got Devin Neal too. I mean, Bean. I was actually going back and rewatching that game, the Kansas-Oklahoma game, and there are times where you see Bean make a play, and you're like, man, if you could put it all together, you could be dangerous. But it's the inconsistencies. But if that kid ever puts it together, he'd be a fun quarterback to watch play. Just from an enjoyment standpoint, I'd have a lot of fun with that. Well, Dominic says this isn't a loss for OU. We already knew he wasn't committing here. Well, still a loss. For Flowers? Yeah. I mean, it's a loss. I mean, it's a loss for Bama as well. He was on their top list. You know what I mean? It is, but what it's a loss for Oklahoma because for months Oklahoma fans had this guy penciled in. For months you were like Aaron Flowers, and then all of a sudden that tune started to change, kind of like with Xavier Filsaime. Oklahoma for months, you almost could have penciled them in right there, and then just towards the end, it was like, oh wait, he's starting to go look at other places. Now that being said, Dominic, it's a loss that Oklahoma can take and not lose stride. It's this dicky dude. It's hard to see. It's hard to be good when you can't do recruiting in a state like Nebraska. When it well, you don't get it, bro. You just don't get it. You obviously don't know anything about Oklahoma football. It's hard to be good when you can't recruit your own state. But the only problem with this, Brent, is that not all states have an analogous level of talent that they can pull from, right? If we look at this,
if we're looking at state populations, if we're taking all of that into account, actual taking per capita rates in, which I haven't done the math on, but just off the top of my head, Louisiana is a state that is so disproportionately loaded with Division I talent because there's no other universities they have to go head to head for Power 5.
They're top
football.
4 annually.
Yeah.
Top 4 annually in developing NFL talent.
But I mean, just even from the high school ranks, you know
That's
what I mean?
not going to change, Brent.
Oklahoma, as much as there are great football players in Oklahoma, we just don't see the same amount of guys being put into the league as like a Louisiana.
No, but he's acting like they're not going to continue to get these guys from Texas and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like they always have.
That's the point.
I
don't
on the face of it. Guy that will tell you By Job was a complete miss for Oklahoma, and I mean you can't discount, like you can't discredit an Oklahoma coach for missing on a guy like By Job when they didn't really miss on him because the kid didn't want to be there. He didn't want to stay in the state. He wanted to go broaden his horizons, see other things, do something different with his life.
The question is if you miss, why did you miss?
It wasn't a miss because Oklahoma.
No. Okay, but if you are after somebody, which y'all were after By Job, and he says no, you missed. The question is why? And when he says, "Oh well, I didn't want to stay in the state of Oklahoma," it's okay, all good, it's cool. See you. That's completely reasonable. It's understandable. It's logical. It makes sense. That's all well and good. Those are the misses on the trail where you're just like, that's all good, guys. We got the next one. That not all misses are created equal. And this is something I got in a little bit of hot water for a few years ago. Chris, you'll remember this. I got in a little bit of hot water with Oklahoma fans. It was year, Lincoln Riley's last year. And I kept saying, something's not right with Oklahoma. I can't put my finger on it, but something's not right. OU fans were coming at me saying, you're kind of hating because they're winning games. And I kept saying, you're right, that they're winning, but not all wins are created equal.
No, they weren't.
Because we kept having arguments. What's the difference between a good win and a bad win? And I was like, if you beat Kent State's not a great example just because of how good but if you beat UNT by 3 points, that win is a win, but that's not the same level of win as beating Georgia by 42 points. Beating Georgia by 42 points is a substantially better win. Now, fast forward, we obviously know what the distraction was. Lincoln Riley wasn't there. I mean, he was, going back. It is what it is.
Yeah, he had his guys recruiting for USC.
The reason I bring that up is because there is a level of nuance to these conversations, right? Like, why did you miss? Mm-hmm. Well, if the kid says, I just didn't want to be in that state, I wanted to see something new, you go back to the drawing board and you're like, guys, that's nothing we can do. We could have rolled out the red carpet and done everything to a T, and he just wants to experience something different. That's not an indictment on us. That's not an indictment on and then y'all go and land PJ Adebayor.
It's okay. When Oklahoma goes and lands David Stone and they go out there and land Caden Durham, and I mean, I'm hearing Gage is potentially back on the table as well. When they start to land some of those top prospects from the state of Oklahoma that have went to go play at others in states because, they just wanted to increase their stock as a player, yeah, we'll come have this conversation again.
It's just like this right here. Peter Woods from Alabama's backyard. He goes to
an hour away from school. Well,
Clemson.
An hour away.
Yeah, Clemson. Now, the faith thing was huge for him. Bama missed on Peter Woods. Now, granted, we get back to the drawing board and he says, well, God led me to Clemson and it was when I was, praying with Dabo Sweeney. What are you supposed to do on that? Like, right? He felt called there.
Bama should have prayed with him.
He probably should have. But Bama missed on Peter Woods, and granted, the Peter Woods miss is much worse than the By Job, right? Like the By Job one, that's one where I don't even think y'all will remember. And this isn't a diss on By Job. He's going to be a freak. Y'all won't remember that in 2 months. That Peter Woods miss, that's going to sit with me for a while, right? So that they're not even in the same stratosphere. But you get the picture I'm trying to paint. Sometimes it's just so far out of your control. You're like, what are we doing here? It is what it is. Speaking of guys who are going to be standouts, and I'm going to throw the name out for y'all, I wanted to talk about some freshmen that could see some playing time. Guys, I've been saying this for a while. I think Adebayor is going to battle for playing time. I think he's going to be right there. Do I think he's going to start? I don't know. But
I think he could.
he is that good. He is that good.
Yes.
I put my stamp on it. He's that good. Now for Alabama, boys, do I have good news? Boys, do I have good news? Well, if you're an Auburn fan, it's not good news, but
Yeah, it's
good
bad
news
for
for
Chris.
me.
Bad for Chris. Bad for Chris now.
Nah,
his step team?
Breeze got the boys
These
ready, man.
freshmen are coming in and apparently looking real good.
Ty.
Now, what's up?
Ty, before we get to all of that, you have not talked about it at
What's
all.
good?
I need to hear about Tony. I need to hear about the Mitchell kid.
Because what's there for me to say?
What's
I
the
thought you were gonna
update?
remind him about his T-shirt.
What am I supposed to say?
I'm just trying to figure out where is he? Is he in the doghouse? What's going on with the kid?
Well, until the stuff gets handled, I can't add anything into it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that's a legal situation.
I know, and I'm not really necessarily talking about that, but I'm just saying where's it standing right now? I mean, obviously, because you were big on him as well.
Oh, I know. Don't get me wrong. It's up in the air.
He was projected to compete for the safety position, and he just, it is what it is with that.
No, I'm not happy about it. Don't get me wrong. It sucks, man. The kid is
I'm
so
not trying to get on the kid. I'm
talented.
just asking, I haven't heard you speak about him, and I know that was
very high.
Just as excited as you were about Downs, you were very excited about Mitchell as well.
Yeah, look, I always say this, right? Chris, I've had so many conversations with you about this, even when we've texted each other and stuff. Optics are everything. Optics are absolutely everything, guys. I hate to... There's one of the reasons why, whenever we look at the Florida situation, right, with Jaden Rashada, Florida, I talked to High Top Sports. Jason and I sat down, and he is as connected with that Florida program. F is for Fanatics in the chat. Another great Florida. They're as connected with that program as you could hope out of a YouTube content creator. You are getting top-notch Florida content from those guys right there. I mean, every bit that you would pay for. They're connected in there, and they've both told me, hey, the Rashada situation, that's not as much on the university as it's being put out. And they've walked me through it, and it makes complete sense. The problem is the court of public opinion has been made. People have already gotten into their head, this is what it is. For Bama, you're coming off of a situation where you haven't had a good year. Burton was acting like a knucklehead during Tennessee, right? He had his knucklehead instances. And then you have that whole situation with the basketball team. And then on top of all of that, here you come and you do that. I know they're all separate, right? And I'm certainly not trying to say his punishment needs to be weighed based on the happenings and doings of others. I'm just creating a picture that painted a very, very bleak outlook. And so Chris sees the hornet's nest sprinting kick. Yeah, no, it's a conversation we need to have. It's just I don't know what else to really add into it until there's something else legally or Saban. Here's the good news though. Caleb Downs is running with the ones right now. Already. I think he's locked up that position. There's a freshman on the offensive line not named Caden Proctor that's running with the ones right now, and Caden Proctor's looking good, and James Smith is getting time rotations with the ones. That is such a help for Bama. I talk all the time about Oklahoma, and we're like, oh, what's the interior of that defensive line going to look like? So too for Bama. So too could we have that conversation for Bama. Every bit of it. Every bit of it. For Bama, very lucky about that. Chris, I'll go ahead because, you were already right there. For Oklahoma, who are some freshmen you think are going to stand out?
I mean, obviously, you could talk about PJ. I think Peyton Bowen is going to be another kid that sees time. From everything that I'm hearing, and I'll say this right here, Jason. Vickers, obviously, you're starting to hear a lot about him, but the kid that they're pleasantly surprised with is Wagner. And you're starting to hear a lot about him. Josiah
I told
Wagner.
you guys, man, that guy's a dog.
Yeah. So I mean, those are some. Look, I think it's going to be a lot of shuffling because spots are up for grabs. I don't think anybody's spot is safe necessarily. I think PJ. I think with OU, to be quite frank with you, and and I know some people may laugh at this. I think I'm not PJ, but PG may back me up on this. But guys, PG, what's that freshman running back? That's a PWO, I believe. McCown.
No. PWO running back. Because you got Dalen Smothers, Caleb Hicks.
I actually have no idea.
Bobby
You're
Walker.
talking about the kid
Walker.
he's ran like a freaking 10-4 something.
Yeah,
100 or something last week.
I can see
Jay
him,
was talking about him too, man. And
I can see him
beast.
Yeah, I can see him kind of in that Gavin Friedman, kind of like that 1A type that comes in and gives maybe a spell, for some type of sweep plays or whatever, and just can make something happen. But yeah, like I said, I think defensively you're going to see more of those kids be in position to play, and especially in that backfield, because I think that Vickers, Bowens, and if everything they're saying about Josiah Wagner is true, then they're dynamic enough to come out there and play at this level right away. But Ty, I honestly think that you're going to see a lot of. I don't necessarily think the focus will be on the freshmen as much as it will be on the sophomore. A lot of the true sophomores, because we got a bunch of guys out there. Obviously, everybody's really excited about Canick, but I mean, Kobe McKenzie is another guy. Kip Lewis, if the weight comes. I mean, there are a lot of young guys that you didn't get to see last year simply because a lot of development on and off the field that they had to really go through. Body wise, and just honestly getting acclimated to this game and this level of attention to detail, I guess, by this coaching staff. So I think the onus is really going to be on, or the attention is really going to be on a lot of these sophomores that we have that were freshmen last year.
No. I'm just going to go ahead and put a pin in that. No.
Hey, let's just go ahead and piss everybody off here in the comments. Kobe McKenzie might take Danny Stutzman's job. There we go. Let's just piss everybody off.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think what you're going to see is he probably could take Canick's job. It's not a
Here's the only thing, Chris. I don't know that he would take You need that sideline to sideline speed. And if you have guys that are heavy run stuffers, it's going to be just like when Bama had their two linebackers go down and they put in Shane Lee. Shane Lee was great. But whenever they asked him to match up on a wide receiver, I mean, I could tell you where they were going with the ball.
So before I jumped on here, probably about an hour before I jumped on here, I was talking to my uncle. He made a great point. He said the reason why you could probably possibly see Kobe start over Canick is simply because, look, Canick hasn't played the position all that long. Kobe McKenzie has ever since we basically found him with the last regime.
That's true.
So it's his football knowledge and IQ. He's a football player. He's a football junkie. He's a guy that studies. He does all that stuff. So the whole thing is that, he's just as talented, but he doesn't have some of the freak athletic ability that.
And unfortunately for your defense,
you need that.
That's what he needs.
Yeah,
and I'm interested to see what he can do. But I think you'd want someone, because Stutzman, he's not your real sideline to sideline guy, was he?
Yeah,
he was.
Oh no, excuse me, no. I think well, it was Agwebu, but Agwebu didn't have the best tackle or pursuit angles, to be honest with you. But here's my only counter to that, Ty. And I hate to do this because I sound like a Texas fan, but when they were winning championships with Clemson and you saw those linebackers, obviously, you had to freak at the cheetah position or that inside backer, right? With Isaiah Simmons, guys like that, right? But he had walk-on linebackers that were calling his defense and basically the leaders and the captain of that defense. And
sure, he also had he had 4 or 5 stars up front.
Yeah, and that's true. I get that, but I'm just saying that you can't take that fact away. No doubt about it. No, and we've said Brent's the best linebacker coach in the nation. Yeah.
Right. And I grant you that. That's not a concern for me. Being able to get these guys coached up.
Stutzman's going to play, though. He's not going anywhere.
And Carter, Lewis Carter, too, if he comes in and has a really good summer, that's a guy as well. Because the one up and up that the one thing that he's going to be able to have over a lot of, especially these other freshmen, but also some of these kids is he looks college ready.
Yeah, what Matt just said, I agree. Yeah, nobody's safe. Nobody's safe.
Yeah, it's weird. I haven't thought about a team that ranked outside the top 100 in defenses where I'm more confident that defensive progression is going to be made than the 2023 Oklahoma Sooners. And I'm not saying, look, we all understand here, it's hard. It's hard improving a team quickly. It's difficult. Now, granted, y'all have great coaches. And we see it done, but that doesn't undermine how difficult it is to do. And Jay has a great point. It gets increasingly more difficult every win you try and add on, right? Like changing your trajectory from a 2-win team to an 8-win team is very easy in comparison to going from a 9-win team to an 11-win team, because then the margins are so thin. I love that quote he said. That being said, I just think when you look at the totality of circumstances, you have to feel confident in Oklahoma's defense. And that's why I'm genuinely so interested. PG and I were talking before everybody got in here about the linebacker play. And I just think it's super interesting. And when I say interesting, I don't mean interesting in like, oh, well, y'all have a question. I mean interesting in like, y'all have several different names that could theoretically take this job. Who is it going to go to? I can't wait. Jason, talk to me about some of the guys you think we need to be on the lookout for.
Well, I think for sure. I mean, I keep bringing up Makari Vickers all the time, but
you do.
But he's lit it up, and then I loved it that you brought up Josiah because he's been doing this thing. But I mean, shoot, you're starting to wonder whether some of these transfer portal guys are really going to get a look at all now. I mean, you had Bothroyd coming in from Wake Forest. Is he even going to really get a chance to play? Because some of these guys that are going to be in there, I mean, obviously you want to see what it's good to have depth, and you're not going to have anybody out there doing 85% of the plays or anything anymore, like what you had last year in the linebackers. I think Samuel Omosillo, I mean, I think he's a freshman that could start early. He looked really good. Dude, he's a beast, you know. But
I like his game a lot. I like Picciotti.
Oh, dude. Yeah, dude. Picciotti is a stud.
Is it Picciotti?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
He's not going to be able to start next year, though.
I don't think so. He's very green. He's got a lot to learn, but I love his ability.
Yeah, he is. And he's a man. He's already a man. So, you know, that's and that's the beauty of this whole deal is, you know what, if some of these guys don't end up playing right away, okay, great. But that means that you get time to develop them a little bit. And that means that obviously the defense is a lot better than 120th, like we were talking about.
A good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Woody is going to be in there, he's a lockdown type of corner anyways. I mean, if you end up having to play Woody a lot because these other corners ain't quite ready, or maybe you don't want to play him full time, you want to see him more I could see, because you know, with the size that Makari has, you probably see him playing nickel a lot too. You know what I mean? You know, I would expect that he's a big, and Dolby.
He's college ready. And when I say college ready, I mean in his build.
Oh, dude, he is. I mean, if you watch any of his workouts that they were doing before, but he even got out here, he's a monster.
I think, excuse me. I think guys like, excuse me. I think guys like PJ, guys like Peyton Bowen, not only are you going to see a lot of them, but you have to see a lot of them to get them SEC ready, to get their game reps, to get them comfortable. Obviously, I know they're playing in the Big 12, but at the same time, you have to get them ready, get them prepared to be able to play not only at this collegiate level but for what's to come. So you have to see a lot of those guys on the field, this coming season.
Oh, we're playing games in the comment section.
Huh? What happened?
But I agree. I think that seriously, it's great to even to be able to sit here and say, hey, you've got some.
He's going to get the
guys.
Auburn stuff. I just know it.
Oh,
he's gonna spite me now.
It's already happened. Yeah, he's just waiting on it. Yeah. So anyway, like I said, I I was hearing. I think I was watching. Yeah, the Voice of College Football, and they were talking about some of these guys may not even get an opportunity. You talk about a guy like, what's the guy, the transfer from Tennessee, the safety? He's gonna have to do something. Yeah, Key Lawrence.
This is a big year for Lawrence.
He's gonna have to do something now, or he's gonna be gone.
Yeah, he's gotta have
this is make or break.
He's got to have a big spring. But if we're talking about guys that are going to get chances, there's a couple guys that aren't being talked about from this 2023 recruiting class that I think are going to have extremely good chances next season to really make a name for themselves. The first one's going to be Ashton Sanders on the defensive line. I think he's going to be a nose tackle for Oklahoma, and I think that's going to be potentially a position where Oklahoma might need him next year. The other one is Taylor Wyme. That, or not Taylor Wyme. Is it Taylor Wyme or Taylor Heim? Taylor Heim out of Bethany, Oklahoma. The 6'4", 190-pound kid. I think they have him as linebacker. I'm really curious to see where they play him this season. But that's a kid that, as a walk-on,
you got a sticker on your shirt there, buddy.
Oh, it's a brand new shirt. I didn't.
Oh no, I hate that shirt. Anyways,
oh my god.
Continue, PG. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, I'm just saying Taylor Heim and Ashton Sanders. Those are two guys that nobody talks about, that everybody needs to be paying attention to, that you could definitely see for some reason come up out of the ashes at some point next season and either make big plays or be somebody that solidifies themselves as a starter. And those are freshmen. Those are guys that were 3-star or not even ranked in terms of the composite rankings. So
that's actually, PG, I agree with you. Sanders could be a kid that you could actually see out there. I think it all depends on what Matt was saying in the comments. I mean, Kelvin Gilliam, however he says his first name, but Gilliam is a kid that, hey, look, when healthy, last year on that defensive line, Kelly, Gilliam, Halton, and Cole, when healthy, those were kids that you had really nothing bad to say about when they were out there.
Cole played out of his mind during Florida State game. I mean, played out of his mind. Yeah.
It's a great problem to have. Are you going to get enough time for a lot of these guys? I think, like Chris said, you definitely want to get these 5-star kids that need to be ready for the SEC. You want them in, but I think that the same is true for a lot of these guys that the top 100 players and stuff. So I feel good about. It. It definitely.
I just can't believe he's in that damn Auburn shirt.
That's awesome. Why are you covering it up, bro?
Oh, my fault. No, I was just listening to what you had to say. Hold on.
You're all right up in the middle of everything.
Jance, get a little bit of that. You know what I'm saying, Jance? You'll be wearing this shirt too when
dude, I love
when you guys lose this year.
I will burn it.
You're not selling them in your merch store, bro?
Toilet paper. Take some toilet paper so you can throw it at your local tree. The nearby tree you can get.
Yeah, we'll go roll Toomer's corner when Alabama beats Auburn with that shirt. Jance, you down?
I'm down.
We can just shred it and roll Toomer's corner with it.
I don't think we want to talk about trees now, but that's fine.
Oh, I'm good to talk about trees. I'm not Harvey up. I didn't poison the tree.
I don't got too much family in me.
Yeah, hey, I live in North Texas. You think we have trees here? No. No. It's the concrete. No. I got a vendetta against wildlife living in North Texas. It's nothing but a concrete jungle here. But that is, in all seriousness, the Auburn game is going to be really fun this year. And we got to go to that cursed stadium. It is cursed, by the way. Yeah. Jordan Hare is cursed. It is absolutely cursed. Now, I do like this right here. Jance, I want to give you your opportunity before we get out of here. Players who you think could boom next year that are true freshmen. They don't have to be for Oklahoma. They don't have to be for Alabama, though. I would like to hear more about some Alabama players. That does give me the warm and fuzzies inside. But who do you think are players we need to be on the lookout for?
Ooh, Well, definitely Caleb Downs. I think that's definitely the first one to kind of we'll go for. Because I think he's again the safety spot, the safety position was the one position group which we all know was kind of more of a weak point for this team. It's pretty much a bunch of backup guys or maybe guys that maybe fit in that rotation. But that job was Caleb Downs for the taking. And like I said, it sucked that Tony Mitchell had happened. The situation happened with him because he could have had a phenomenal opportunity to also compete as well. But you look at guys like a James Smith who has an opportunity to compete for it. Again, he's gonna. I believe he's gonna be in the rotation, and I think he'll be a starter next year. Again, you look at guys like Caden Proctor. You look at guys like Olis Allen, who from what I've been hearing has had that mentality. Who has has been trying to
he's been running with the ones from what I was told. He's been getting at least some looks with the ones.
Exactly. I mean, he's had that alpha mentality from day one. So that's crazy, man. You got a Norwegian kid coming in and just all of a sudden bringing that Viking mentality over to the Bama team, and now everything's heated up. So I'm definitely really excited for this group, especially our young running back core. I'm excited to see what Justin Haynes does. I'm just because that running back group between Rodell Williams and Jason McKellen, even though it's a bunch of really good guys, there isn't that dude. There isn't that one dude. There isn't that one running back that I can sit up here and say, okay, that very similar to what Derrick Henry was, or very similar to what I wouldn't even run necessarily Damian Harris, but like what I projected Bo Scarborough to be, or Eddie Lacy to be, or Trent Richardson, or Mark Ingram. Like I don't think he's in that caliber of player. I think Justin Haynes. I think when I take a look at him, I think he has the potential to be that dude. So it'll be very interesting to see what his path can be at the running back position. Obviously, we need to again the offensive line with Allen and the rest of those guys. We definitely need to take a really, really big look at it, because after this year, a lot of those guys that you're going to be seeing are going to be gone. So very, very big opportunity for a lot of these freshmen to appear on the offensive line as well. So I'm excited about our 23 class. I'm really, really excited about the 23 class overall. I think that this is going to be a very, very important year as far as development goes, because after this year, a lot of us are going to be gone, and we're going to have to be really heavily reliant on our 22, 23 class, 21 class, and with the transfer portal and everything hitting, you gotta try to find to reproduce. And we're gonna be at the stage of point where we're gonna be extremely young. Like this is the youngest Bama team that I can ever remember in the Saban era. That kind of makes us a little bit unpredictable, because I honestly have no clue how the season's gonna look like. But
I've said it. I think this season could look just like last season.
Yeah. But just more of we can go at 10-2, but I think we can see more positive things from this season compared to last season, because last season, majority of the team were on that national championship 2020 team, and that they were on the 2021 team, and they came back and we had expectations. Hey, this could be the greatest Bama team ever. I don't think anyone's going to sit up and say this is the greatest Bama team ever. I think this is more in the lines of a 10-2 season, but more positives going into 24.
As long as you don't have 17 penalties
I'm
in
fine
a
with
game,
that.
as long as Bama doesn't average 12 penalties a game all year long, I don't think it was 12. I think I'm adding one or two, but it was like 10. It was
we
wild.
were top 5 in the nation as far as most penalized. That was ridiculous.
Inexcusable. That can't happen. Not with this team. I'll put it like this. If that other team that had that much talent on it went 10-2 being that undisciplined, you walk this team in being that undisciplined, you would shake everybody's hand in the room walking out of that season 10-2. Everybody's hand in the room. If they bring that same level of discipline. Now, good news is, I don't have any reason to believe they're going to bring that same level of discipline, right? It's been kind of a one-off from the Nick Saban mantra was last year. So I think it's completely reasonable to say it's going to go back to the way it was, but I also need to be shown. I was told last year was supposed to be great, and it did not look great. So now I have to see it look good. But guys, I know we need to get out of here. I know Jason has a stream coming up. I know PG, you're about to be doing some stuff. So as always, we're going to go through the line, tell everybody where they can find all your great content, and then we're going to hop out of here. PG, we'll start with you.
Yeah, y'all can find me, The PG Show, on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube. Listen, we're bringing you guys constant interviews for the 2024 recruits, and I think we got some current players coming up. So, I'm excited for Chris's statement at the end.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you can find me at Jan Sports or Jan716 on Twitter, Jan Sports on YouTube for more college football, more NFL content. Again, we got the draft coming up, so I'm excited to talk about some of that. But yeah, you guys can find me over there.
So, hey, before I go, I just want to know, Jans, what are y'all drafting this year? Y'all drafting Hope or Talent, Super Bowl? I don't know what are y'all doing over there? It's been a while, huh? Them Bills. Anyways, look, Auburn by 40. You already know what the shirt says. Hey, Horns Down Podcast. You already know where you can find us. Jason, what's up?
Hey, you can find me at CFB-pod on YouTube. That's at CFB-pod. I'm Birdie Man Dub on Twitter as well. I will be dropping our new website. I just got to finish it up this weekend, trying to get the bugs out of it. So, but check us out here. I'm always here or on Jay's show as well. Make sure that you check out Jay's show. And we'll be live here in about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So check us out there on at CFB-pod.
Yeah, going to be a great time. But until next time, we'll be coming to you live again Monday, 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. Until then, enjoy your weekend. I'm going to be watching UFC and spring games. See you.
Right.
Yeah. I can't wait for this card.